Gene will get the recording going.
Let's do it. All right, I am going to call the joint meeting of the Norwich Public Utilities Board of Commissioners and the Sewer Authority to session for Tuesday, July 27th, 2021. In order to effectively run this meeting online, I want everyone to announce their name and title before speaking if they're joining us via WebEx. First item of business is to welcome our new commissioner, Sean Avon. He is here in his first meeting, and I think he's going to be a great addition. He has a strong business background, and I think that's the sort of thing that is helpful here on the NPU board. So, again, welcome. Glad you're with us. The next item on the agenda is the 15-minute public comment period. I'd like to remind anyone who would like to speak tonight that this is the time for public comment, not a discussion or back and forth or policy debates or anything of that sort. Any issue raised by the public during this period will be considered by the board in consultation with the staff at the appropriate time. And to be respectful of everyone's time this evening, any public comment should be limited to 3 minutes. Do we have any people in the public who would like to comment? Mayor. Oh. Hello. Yes. Thank you.
I won't take up much of your time. I came to personally welcome and thank our new Commissioner Sean Avon, for serving here at Norwich Public Utilities. We were talking down Master Suckers a week or so ago, and I told him, well, you're appointed for 5 years. He's like, 5 years? And so, no, actually, it's the unexpired term of former Commissioner Steve Becker. But full appointment is, in fact, 5 years. And I look forward to your service here in the city very, very much. I've gotten to know you over the last few years, and your presence and your business operations at Farm 66. But I'm very, very encouraged by your willingness to serve. And on behalf of the city of Norwich and its people, I thank you for taking this step. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. Do we have any members of the public on WebEx who would like to make comments? If we do, please speak up.
No.
All right, we don't seem to have any. Oops, wait a minute. Again, do we have any members of the public who would like to comment? All right, we appear to have no members of the public who wish to comment, and with that, we will close the period of public comment and move on to the next item on the agenda, which is approval of the minutes of the NPU Board and Sewer Authority meeting of June 28th, 2021. Do I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved. Second motion.
We have a first and a second. Do we have a vote, please? All those in favor of the minutes?
Aye.
They are three votes in favor of it. Sean, I assume you're not voting on the minutes because you were here for the.
So I was there. I would have to abstain for that.
Yeah, I think that's probably right.
Yeah.
All right, thank you very much. The next item on the agenda is information and updates provided to the board prior to tonight's meeting. Chris?
Any questions for the staff or myself regarding the leadership team update or the financial update?
All right, and the next item on the agenda then is the pension obligation bonds. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda to move the pension obligation bonds to the beginning of the meeting to accommodate our guest speaker's schedule?
So moved.
We have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
We are, now looking to the pension obligation bond section.
Correct. Do we have, Josh available?
We have Josh Pothier, City Comptroller, online, as well as John Sastrom from Pullman and Comley, who wrote the resolution to answer any questions. I believe, Josh, you have a little introduction to the resolution tonight?
Yes. Good evening, everyone, and thanks for accommodating us by moving us to the top of the agenda. So just to give a brief overview of the pension obligation bonds, the proposal is to issue $145 million of pension obligation bonds to pay for $144 million unfunded pension liability. The difference of $1 million is a conservative estimate of what all of the professional services, including actuarial, legal, underwriting, bond rating services, will cost to issue those bonds. So essentially, this is swapping one debt for another. Pension is something that needs to be paid by the city and the public utilities contributed to each year. We have an opportunity to save millions of dollars because of historically low interest rates. West Hartford, in June of this year, issued $324 million of pension obligation bonds at 2.54%. Now, they are AAA rated, so they've got a better rating than the city of Norwich. However, the interest rates have actually moved down since they issued their bonds. So it makes me hopeful that the interest rates will be in a good place, assuming all of the approvals go through from the city council and the voters. Using the assumptions that we sell $145 million of pension obligation bonds at 3% for a 25-year repayment term, our actuaries ran 10,000 scenarios to compare the net cost over 30 years. The median result of those 10,000 scenarios was a $43 million savings. Of this projected $43 million savings, about 15.6 million of it would be Norwich Public Utilities' estimated share. The other part of the pension obligation bond proposal that is a pension reserve fund, as well as some changes to our pension funding policies. These are designed to make a buffer for any swings in the market after pension bonds are issued. We took West Hartford's pension reserve policy as a starting point, and I tailored some things to basically hedge against what if the market does extremely well? We don't want millions of dollars locked up in an overfunded pension fund. I wanted to hedge against that risk. It's not a bad situation to be in, but then again, if you've got, your pension fund is 200% funded, you can't take the money out of it. And that, which leads us to finally the repayment agreement that is on your agenda tonight is essentially an endorsement by the commissioners of public utilities of the pension obligation bonds and an acknowledgement that NPU will pay its share of the debt service and follow the pension reserve fund and policies the same way it has been for years, contributing to the pension obligation fund, to the pension fund and the OPEB funds. So that's it in a nutshell. That we had a presentation on the 29th, that's June 29th, that many of you attended, which went into a much greater level of detail, but that's a summary of what was in that presentation. Does anyone have any questions?
Commissioner Michael, I have a question, Josh.
Thank you for the presentation. This isn't a question, but just a confirmation. We're doing this jointly with the city's pension, all right? It's the NPU pension and the city pension combined.
Right, yeah, it's everyone who participates in the city's employee retirement fund. So that's all of the employees at Norwich Public Utilities, the ones at the city of Norwich, and the non-certified staff of the Norwich Public Schools.
Okay, and what percentage of the liabilities NPUs approximately, if you have the number off the top of your head?
So
If you don't,
I don't have the percentage offhand, but I estimate that 15.6 million of the 43 million savings is utilities. So that's the ratio.
okay, so that, yeah, so it's around 40% roughly, or something there. So, on average, over the last, I don't know how long you have, but we have been earning more than 3%, obviously, or we wouldn't be doing this. We have to pay 3%, hopefully we pay less. So over the last 10, 15, 20 years, is there like an average return on investment that the pension fund has gotten that you can share with us?
I don't have that in front of me. It's in the presentation materials from the June 29th meeting. You can see if I put my hands on it. So as part of this analysis, we lowered the assumed rate of return from 7.25% to 6.25%, which should also reduce volatility going forward. Let's see.
We're getting 7.25.
Yes, correct.
That sounds pretty reasonable. I mean, over time, the market's gotten 10% for 100 years, so is it. I know
So
we're not listening.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, well, thanks, Josh.
Well, Josh, this is Bob Staley. I have a couple of questions as well.
Okay.
First of all, what is the hurdle we have to overcome? I mean, do we have to overcome the 3% cost of the bonds in order to make money, or do we have to overcome 3% plus a 6.25, I believe is the number you use, growth assumption in the pension fund?
So if we earn an average of 6.25% over the 30 years, we would save $43 million, assuming that we issue bonds at 3%. It could be that the market zigs and zags, so we can't really count on earning a straight 6.25% each year, but I feel more confident that we're lowering the bar from 7.25 to 6.25, which is much more in line with pension funds across the United States. So
Well, yeah, I mean, the discount rate is 6.25, and the cost of the bonds is 3%. So, I mean, what my math says to me is that we have to exceed 9.25% in order to improve the financial situation of the pension fund. And if we're not doing that, we're losing money. Is that wrong?
no, I would say that if we issue bonds at 3% and we over 30 years earn 5.5%, we'd still be ahead of where we would be had we not issued pension obligation bonds.
We just have to make enough to pay back the bond.
Okay. And secondly, one of the things that you try to do with investment, I think, is average in rather than dump all of your money into the market at a particular point in time where you could, go in at the top of the market and actually lose money. And,
Right.
normally that would be the case. Normally, the pension fund would get an allocation from the city for amortization payments every year, and it'd be, an amount of money, a couple $1 million, whatever the number is. And that would go in, and the next year would be another couple, and so you would effectively average into the investment. But in this instance, we're going to get $145 million to invest.
We're not going to. We're going to do dollar cost averaging between 18 and 36 months after issuing the bonds. So, that's a risk that we definitely wanted to address.
So we don't have to borrow the entire 145 on day one. We can sort of draw on it, or is it going to sit idle, or what's going to happen?
It's going to be in, no risk investments as it gets phased in over 18 to 36 months.
Okay. All right. And I mean, you mentioned West Hartford. The Dow, for example, is up 27% from the time that 27% from the time that West Hartford did this. I mean, I would think that's got to be a concern. Did you say it's up since June, the end of June? By how much percent? What percent? 27% roughly.
It's June of what?
Last year.
June, okay.
I assume you were talking about last month.
Oh, that's.
All right, I'm sorry. I thought you were talking about a year ago.
Oh, no. June 2021.
And then I guess my final question is, my sense, and I'm not an expert on this, but my sense is that the performance of the investment advisors for the Norwich Pension Fund have lagged a little bit in terms of performance. Is there any plan on the part of the Personnel and Pension Board to review its consultant and investment manager relationships?
I think the P&P board has actually been pretty satisfied with how they've performed. We conducted an RFP process for them within the last couple of years and selected them over several competitors.
Yeah, that may be. I mean, I chaired the NFA Foundation Investment Committee for a while, and I know we were outperforming it for the city, but I mean, that's fine. I mean, if the plan is to continue on, that's the plan. I mean, I don't have any role in that.
Also, if I might add, this might go back in. I mean, the city might have a more conservative outlook on its investment programs than NFA. Maybe, they might, based on your risk parameters, you're kind of structuring the rate of return you're going to get too. So it could be, the difference might be real, what you're talking about, but there might be a reason for it, because maybe the city is more risk averse than NFA. So they may they're more directly dependent on for their existence, perhaps, than NFA is.
Yeah, I think the asset mix is pretty similar.
You do.
Stocks and bonds, yeah.
I don't know.
All right, that's my questions. Does anyone else have any questions?
Josh, you also indicated this is going to take a little while before the state approves this, if the voters approve this in November. And if the markets are not conducive to going forward, you also have the ability not to proceed, correct?
Correct. Yeah, we wouldn't do it if it's not going to save us money. There isn't a strong possibility that it's going to save us money.
Okay.
Oh, and just everyone, we have microphones, they've had issues hearing us in the past online, so just hit green when you're ready to talk, it will help. I didn't do that.
All right, well, listen, I appreciate you answering my questions. Do we have any other questions for Josh?
Hang on, I push the button. See, mine's not working. Here it goes. Hey, Josh Sufield, I have to ask this question. If we did not get the bond, the way it was laid out, and we saved the $43 million, and instead we chose to raise taxes, how much would we have to raise taxes on a per year basis to make up the 145? Let's say in 30 years.
I'm sorry, how did that go again?
Well, if you chose to fully fund the pension fund
Okay,
by simply,
Yep.
by simply raising taxes,
yeah,
or raising whatever fund you have to get them paid for. I mean, do they get paid for by the taxpayers, is that correct?
Well, the NPU.
And NPU.
Paid for by the ratepayers.
Okay, all right, so every organization has their different, okay, so the Board of Ed and the city employees, it gets paid the taxes, we get paid with the ratepayer, okay.
Yep.
So,
Yep.
we'll take NPU out of it, I don't want to talk rate increases right now, but is it simply, I mean, is it going to be a couple of points on the mill rate in order to get this paid off? Or
Yeah,
have you not done that calculation?
It could make the difference of a mill or two per year. If it's going to cost us $43 million more than it could by issuing pension obligation bonds.
Okay. So it's not an insignificant amount, on the mill rate. It would certainly raise eyebrows if we had to do it that way.
Right.
Okay.
Well, that is what we're doing now, I think. I mean, we and the city are making amortization payments to bring down that amount.
Well, yeah, I know, but it's underfunded, and it's going to be underfunded going forward unless you increase the amount you're putting into it. That's my understanding. Is that right? Okay.
Well, we're saving 43 million over 30 years, do the math. Do the math.
Okay.
A year.
Okay.
We're saving the taxpayers then, right?
Yeah.
That
Okay.
million, two, or whatever.
I mean, I'm a big fan of the market, so I don't see the risk here. If you look historically at the S&P and things like that, you shouldn't have, but there have been whole decades when the stock market did not go up. So if we get into one of those cycles, that's going to be a little unpleasant. That's my only comment.
All right, do we have any other questions? All right, hearing none. Chris, I think the next item on the agenda then is a motion to approve the resolution regarding the Board of Pension Obligation Bond referendum. Do we have a motion and a second?
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mike. Do we have a second?
Sure.
It's up to you.
Yeah.
I'm not forcing you.
Yeah, no, it's okay. Well, I'm not as versed in the plan as I need to be, but I do want to just kind of ask a question in regards to the repayment terms. I think I missed that part, and I don't want to hold up the resolution, but if there was a plan in there for us to be able to see that, to ensure that we're moving in the right direction for our repayment terms, it's not dragged out. Then I think that I will second that.
Yeah, it's a 30-year bond, 3%, so we're on the hook for the interest for the bond, and we're hoping we can get 6.25% on the money. That's basically the plan.
I just want to make sure I understand it correctly. Well, it's a good question. I mean, how about payment of the principal? When does that happen on the bond?
Josh, do you hear that?
Yes.
Sorry.
So these bonds would be structured to be a level payment, sort of like a mortgage.
So,
So, yeah.
The principal is 30 years. 30 years. Now, how many payments? Is it a quarterly payment or a monthly payment?
I think it would be biennial. I mean, not biennial, twice a year, twice a year. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, that's paid principal, that too.
All right, so we have a motion on the table. We need a second in order to proceed. Thank you very much. We have a second. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? It is passed unanimously. Thank you very much. Thank you, Josh.
Thank you very much.
Good job.
Next item on the agenda is the CMAC update. Commissioner Keo.
Here we go. Okay. Thank you, Robert. All right, the CMEC board met on July 22nd. The objective summary for June showed net cost deviation to benchmark to be on budget. However, the projected year-end numbers are expected to be below budget by 10%. All financial stability numbers for June have positive variance. Project portfolio for June was 5% over budget, with Microgen, Pierce, Hydro-Quebec, and DG as positive drivers. Pierce received an unbudgeted ISO dispatch in June and 2 more in July, which at least temporarily will put them back in positive numbers. Sub-base fuel project incurred more delays with interagency agreements. The project is now expected to be online in October. Energy market analysis shows unexpected forward market increase that will drive up winter costs. CMEX reported they're 75% hedged at a $45 per megawatt hour rate and expected winter rate of $60 per megawatt hour with the additional 25% purchases, which will be on the spot market. This compares to an Eversource winter hedge rate of $90 per megawatt hour that, with all other things being equal, will result in a CMEC electricity rate that's 3 cents per kilowatt hour cheaper than Eversource. And lastly, the board voted to approve an amended and restated Section 125 Welfare Benefits Plan that allows eligible CMEC employees to direct pre-tax salary funds to the employee cost share portion of their benefit plan. That's all.
Thank you, Stuart. Do you have any questions? Okay, hearing none, we will move on to the Finance and Audit Subcommittee report. Mike.
Okay, I guess Bill isn't here tonight, but Bill Warzika and I attended the meeting along with Chris and our executive team here, and covered a few areas. Let me turn the mic on. So, undertaking a major policy, formation of a major policy, debt policy. And this debt policy is going to set parameters for how and when we borrow money.
Two-sided.
I think it's a really good development. I think, for a number of years, we were bogged down with a lot of other things that were going on. Really glad that management got around to this. And I think they did a great job. Basically, we established standards that are in accordance with Moody's AAA bond rating standards. Did I get that right, Laura? What did I say? Oh, all right. I was shooting for the moon there. Which is very good. In other words, each division, if they need, let's say they want to do a capital project or they need operating capital, and there are standards for how much cash we actually have to have in each division in order to keep in good standing with various regulatory authorities too. This would determine how much we can bond or borrow and stay in accordance with good standards, good financial management and integrity standards. And I think it's a lot of work went into it by a lot of top professionals, including our own. So, I don't know when we're planning to vote on that.
Yeah, so Mike, Steve can have a presentation on that tonight.
Okay.
We're not asking for a vote tonight, but if the board decides to vote on it, it's acceptable tonight, but we can also digest over a month and ask more questions next month.
Well, I was very impressed with the efforts myself. That's all I can say, and I'll let Steve explain it. So on and so forth tonight. And we had some other presentations too. That was the main topic, but Laura, her hearing, and Steve Cinco modifications to gas and electric rates. That basically means we're having a revised invoice sent out to customers, it's easier to understand, more informative. And helps them, if they have questions, who to call, explains things. It's complicated business providing utilities to people, so I think that's going to be very helpful. We have an update on the pension obligation bonds, we just covered that. And then we've had this problem with outdated sewer assessments. Apparently, once sewer assessment is 20 years old, it's questionable if we have a right to pursue collection. And we're taking some action to, to make changes in our procedures to improve our chances of collecting delinquent sewer obligations for people who got hooked up to the water or sewer lines and have never paid. And that's coming along well. We've done a lot of work on that too. And then we got an update on our auditor's progress with the hearing audit. And got a presentation from Jeff Ryan on tree trimming along our electric system. And we really are saving a lot of money by contracting. We've got a tremendous contract this year with a company, and it's saving us a lot of money over if we did it ourselves. And I asked if we should be doing more of it because an outage is, so expensive. It's the old expression is an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. But our experts, and I assume they know a lot more than me, say that we're kind of at an optimal point with this program that we have in terms of our frequency and the amount of trimming that we're doing. And, I hope that works out that way because no one wants outages in the middle of the winter time, ice and snow, drop a tree on the lines. But I have to say that Norwich probably has the best track record of anybody in the state of solving outages quickly for people, restoring power quickly for people when there's some sort of environmental problem, which I think we're all real proud of. So that was the last topic we covered. That's one.
All right, thank you, Michael. Are we going to do the debt policy presentation now, or are we going to, it's a couple of items further into the agenda, we can wait.
It's up to you, Bob, what your preference is.
Well, it just seems like it flows from, well, let's go through the next stuff first. The next item on the agenda, rather than change the agenda, is the customer bill update. Chris?
It's going to be a really brief update by Jeff, just on where we are in the process, and it's good news.
It's good news. We're live as of today. So I'm just going to pass out, actually, it worked out really well. Jean Carras is here, and she's the creative genius behind our MTU newsletter. We talked a lot about the social media and all the different ways that we communicated the changes to the bill. We got some feedback in previous meetings. I didn't turn my microphone on either, so now we'll turn that. So just a good clear.
Yeah, speak louder.
There we go. All right. So again, tireless efforts by our customer service team and our IT team to get this all implemented, tested, validated, and released. So that's all I got.
Okay, do we have any questions? Hearing none, thank you very much.
If day one of 30 days to get out to all the customers, you'll all be getting new bills at home shortly.
All right, that sounds good. The next item is the stand public Wi-Fi discussion. Chris?
Great. I thought John was going to provide the update, Steve. There he is.
Yeah, we're there. Safe living. You're safe, Stephen.
Very nice to meet you. This is for you. We got that truck for you behind the scenes.
And John Cummings, our IT manager, and we'll be getting up to speed on what came in the mail today, or by truck today.
So a little update on where we are with the wireless router. We had delivered today, one of these field devices. This is exactly what this will look like. That they're gonna be hanging on the poles in the community or off buildings. The enclosure here is a weatherproof enclosure that, protects the device, protects it obviously from weather, but also from impact with anything, make sure that there's nothing that affects the device itself. This is the device. As you can see, it's a lot smaller than you might think initially. These antennas are specifically designed so they can handle multiple simultaneous connections. That's one of the reasons why this will work so very well outside. You know, I've used the term before that comparing this to the modem you have at home is like comparing the faucet on the side of your house to a fire hydrant. This being the fire hydrant. This is the device that will provide 2 city blocks of coverage from the location where it is, handling hundreds of simultaneous connections. So all 13 locations have been identified. All 13 devices were delivered today. This is the first one to come out of the box, so it's going to take us some time to configure it, make them available to hang on poles, and then hopefully, I think our target date is still by Labor Day to have everything installed in operation. With any luck, we can maybe do sooner than that. But this is what these devices look like. So, you know, at Chris and Steve's suggestion, I brought this in to kind of show them how. So any other questions I can answer about the project or about the devices or anything else that,
Well, just maybe for John, edification. What's the objective of this and what is the?
So this is part of the public Wi-Fi project. This is actually through the state of Connecticut. CT-free Wi-Fi is what the network will look like. We've identified 13 locations throughout the city that have a combination of access to our infrastructure so we can hang these and make them work very quickly and cost effectively. And it also provides certain underserved communities with access to broadband internet. It's a tremendous program from the state. There's, I forgot the number now, is it 107 or 117?
No, 70.
107 towns where this has been being implemented. New London is doing exactly the same project. I'm not sure who else in Eastern Connecticut, but again, it goes through the state's funding this program. Part of this, you'll have the Connecticut free Wi-Fi, and there's something called EduRoam, which will allow students to click on that, authenticate to their school, and get their schoolwork. And that works wherever the EduRoam system is. So, Yale New Haven College student, Connecticut College, anyone whose school system uses EduRoam will be able to get their schoolwork here in Norwich, from in the neighborhoods we have this going on. I'm excited about this.
13 is pilot. We can choose to expand, and there may be some additional funding going forward to even more neighborhoods. We'll see how it works. We'll get a good evaluation. We'll work closely with the city to make sure that we're meeting all the needs, and we'll see if we expand after that.
When do you anticipate this to roll out?
Well, we're hoping to have all the work done by Labor Day, have this available. One of the sites should be active soon. Otis Library, the device has actually been installed. It's just a matter of trying to reroute the networking connection. Initially, they were going to go through the library's connection, which is a part of the state library system. We're going to reroute that and have all of these modems go on the same connection. It makes it easier to manage that.
I got a few more questions if you don't mind.
Sure.
Does each individual person have to like create a username, or you just kind of just hop on as you see a Wi-Fi hotspot and you just connect?
That's a great question, and you don't have to create an account. The way that this is set up, they call it one-click access, where, Connecticut Wi-Fi, click, and you're on.
Like Starbucks?
Yeah. Like if you went to Dunkin' Donuts, you can see it, you click on, you get onto the Wi-Fi.
Sure. And then, I guess the last question is obviously, how do we protect consumer safety? Is there like an intranet that we use to like, for like identity theft and things like that?
Right.
How does that work?
Yeah, so there is a managed portal that we have access to through NPU. The way that the device is set up, it is throttled and it's filtered. So, for example, if someone wanted to get up and they wanted to just stream Netflix, that connection will throttle down a little. They'll still be able to do it, but it won't hog the bandwidth for everyone else. So it kind of makes the usage more fair across the connections. We're also going to filter it against certain content, and we're using the same kind of filtering standards that you use in, say, the public school. So obviously things like pornography or sites that promote violence, things like that. I don't know that we'll necessarily be selecting sites. We kind of subscribe to a service and that has a list of them. Having said that, through that system, we do have the ability, if we need to screen or blacklist a site, depending upon the nature of what's going on that site. As far as protection, like personal protection, I don't know that it's going to be any more or less dangerous than if you're on, say, your Wi-Fi at home. You know, an interesting opportunity moving forward would be to have more public outreach, similar to what we do internally, to staff, to talk about internet safety and, you know, how to protect yourself online and things you have to be aware of. Because the more prevalent that access becomes, then unfortunately, the more bad people are going to take advantage of it. So, again, first steps first, we want to make sure we have it available, and then hopefully we can kind of start something that grows in the community.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Yes.
All set?
Yes, sir. I'm great. Thank you.
And I'm a geek. I love this stuff. So call me anytime I can help you out.
Yeah.
Any other questions I can help out?
Yeah, real quick, is this connecting through existing lines that we have?
Yeah, so we're going to take advantage of existing infrastructure. We don't have to run any additional lines. And it's expected that the bandwidth will not negatively impact anything else we're already doing. It's kind of this excess supply right now. If we were to look at doing something citywide, we would have to consider that bandwidth and figure something out for that back-end infrastructure. But that's a little bit, of course, before the cart. We want to see how well this is adopted first, the kind of bandwidth we see, kind of adoption rate in the community. Yeah. I think I may have mentioned this once before. In New Haven, when they lit this up, they didn't even have to advertise. By mid-afternoon, the day that this went live, the system was up and running. They had hundreds of connections, people on it, because they saw it. They knew it was there.
Nice. Okay.
We good?
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Is there any other questions? Let me know. I'd love to help anything out with this.
Yeah.
Thank you.
All right, great, thank you very much. And we're now back at policy presentation.
All right, so we had the first presentation of this at the Finance and Audit Committee meeting last week. And thank you, Laura.
Actually, 2 meetings ago, right?
It's been 2 meetings.
Original was
In June?
The full presentation in July, and now we have the next iteration.
It's had a few iterations.
It's had multiple iterations with lots of feedback and lots of participation in order to get the policy where it is. So if you can bring the presentation up, we can walk through that. So this is a slightly summarized version of the presentation we gave to the Finance and Audit Committee. So our debt management policy, as Mike indicated, we use multiple efforts to bring the policy together and put together what we think is a very comprehensive policy. This policy is applicable to any debt issued, issued on behalf of or by NPU, and that would include, and what we want to make sure is that the debt is prudent, it's cost effective, it preserves our financial stability, it meets our capital needs, and it's at the lowest possible cost. And we want to avoid conflict of interest. Within the policy, there is a strategy for implementing this policy. We want to seek financing that establishes our debt reserve, maintains our compliance using metrics. As Mike mentioned, we use Moody's standards for AA. The debt will not be used to finance operational costs, and the debt for capital projects which are essential to our strategic goals and result in significant long-term benefit to NPU. Next slide, please. Debt instruments that this policy manages, any debt over $500,000 would require us to come to the board and get approval. The following type of debt in the policy that is allowable: general obligation bonds, a revenue bond, lease transactions, commercial loans, and lines of credit. And new debt issuance, we want to make sure that that is maintaining the financial stability of NPU, and we want to monitor that annually during the budget process and when deemed appropriate by management. Next slide. So the policy establishes the parameters on the debt reserve fund. We'll establish and maintain debt reserve funds for each division. And in the policy, Mike, we did make that adjustment where it shows the calculation for those parameters by division. And also, we want to make sure that we're meeting our third-party reserves or meeting the Moody's criteria if those third-party requirements aren't specified. We want to make sure that our terms are the most prudent, fiscally conservative, and cost-effective. We would prefer to find debt that is a fixed interest rate, level principal repayment schedule, 1/20th payment when available, and that's specifically for clean water and drinking water where they have that flexibility. We will evaluate alternative options as they're presented, and that would be available if it is in the best interest of NPU with documented savings or other benefits. We want to make sure that we have some flexibility, but also some rules about that flexibility. And we would look at restructuring that if it is in the best interest of NPU. Recently, the city did restructure the gas bond obligations because, again, cost savings were available. Next slide, please. So managing our outstanding debt, we'll monitor our debt obligations on an ongoing basis, no less than annually during the budget process and included as part of our audit process. Again, going through those calculations and making sure we're meeting the parameters and in compliance with the policy. We are bringing this policy to the board for review and approval. And then the finance team will coordinate all activities regarding the issuance and administration of the debt, making sure that we have internal controls in place, that we are meeting the requirements of our own policy, and that we're executing those calculations in accordance with the policy deadlines and reporting requirements. Next slide. Again, the Moody's measurements for financial strength using the debt coverage ratio for AA rating between 1.7 and 2, and the debt to operating revenue for AA rating greater than 2 but less than or equal to 4. And again, that would be by division, so gas, electric, water, and sewer all calculated as a standalone entity so that each of those divisions are standing financially strong. So, and then as we do those calculations and evaluate, we would then look and see if any action is required. If we are looking to fall below those minimums, we would propose rate adjustments to the board or cost reductions or a combination thereof in order to maintain the integrity and reliability of our system, but also maintain financial compliance. So the Finance and Audit Committee has seen the draft of this. We've gotten some feedback. We'd like to give the board the opportunity to review the policy. As we said, it is very comprehensive. There's a lot involved here. If you have any questions or concerns, we'd love to address those, or if you have any edits. We did incorporate the edits from the Finance Committee meeting, but if we have any additional ones, absolutely. And then give the board the opportunity to review that, and then ask for the approval of the policy.
So I have a quick question. How does this relate to my pet project of the standby line of credit?
So line of credit is addressed as an allowable type of debt instrument. So with this policy in place, we would then look at what we would use that line of credit for. And we would work with the city in going through the RFP process in order to find a financial institution that would allow, that would have that available. And then we would have to look at what we would use those dollars for. If we had that line of credit just in standby for emergency purposes, that is definitely something we could look at.
Sure.
Yeah, and when we started talking to city treasurer and controllers, that was our requirement to have a governing policy to go out and get those lines of credit. So this is, once this is in place, we can go right out and start that immediately.
Great. Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions? All right, hearing none. Laura, you'd like us to review this and maybe it could be on the agenda at the next meeting or something to that effect for approval?
Yes.
All right, great. Thank you very much. I think we're all set then, unless no other questions. The next item on the agenda are action items, and the first action item is a scheduling of a rate change public hearing. Chris?
Yeah. So we've had to make some clarifications in our rate, and we are also proposing a economic development rate. And Steve, can you pull that presentation up?
Yeah, right here. So Laura's handed out two documents. As Chris mentioned, this is really two parts. You approved rates back a year ago in August of 2020. It was a rate track for rates to change on November 1st of 2020, November 1st of 2021, and November 1st of 2022. The only rates that changed in 2020 were sewer rates. This coming November, rates will change in all 4 services. We had to make some clarifications in some gas and some electric rates. So Laura's going to go over that real quick, and she just handed out the clarifications are made in red. So those will be the changes that are made. None of the numbers changed. All the rates themselves that were approved back a year ago are still the same. It's just really comes down to applicability to certain customers, because we had to, at the time, we added a number of different rates for gross revenues tax purposes, without following an audit from the state. We were required to do that. Laura?
Let's see. So the packet that I handed out to you that has multiple red line copies on it, there is one that shows gas and one that shows electric. So as Steve said, we did do all of the rate hearings, and these are the proposed rates. So the actual rates, the numbers aren't changing. As you look through these documents, you'll see that there is some language either added in red, where we're clarifying items, or there are areas where we're doing deletions. We wanted to make sure that we addressed an issue in regards to overlap between 2 rates, and that's where we're making the clarification on the removal of language. And then there is areas where we had to add in some parameters. So if we look at the electric file, it's the one that starts with ERES on the top of the page. You'll notice that there's some language that's been removed on that one, again, so that we don't have any duplication where there would be confusion on the applicable rate. And then if we look at that second page, where you see that additional language is added in, where the existing language exceeds 10 kW, we added in, but it's less than 100. So we wanted to make sure that we put those parameters on there so it was clear which rate was applicable. And that's, in several of those rates, we had to make that one adjustment. And then if you look at that last page where it's EPALED, that's the LED rates for private area lighting, there was a typo in there. It should have said per kilowatt, and it said per light. So we needed to make that adjustment. Very similar in the gas section, we had to add in a couple of little additional clarification items, remove some language that wasn't clear, and then make a couple of corrections on those. In the last page that you have on that, the header says non-manufacturers, but right in the language it says manufacturers, the word non needed to be removed. So all in all, some fairly straightforward edits that are necessary because, again, clarification and we want to make sure, again, rate applicability. Are there any questions on those? Okay, thank you.
Laura, I had to look up appurtenances. I've never used or seen that word in my life.
You probably have them. You probably have them.
Can I?
The extra stuff is attached to a system.
Yeah, I got that from Google, but I still have no idea what that is. So if it's not hooked up to your house, what is it hooked up to? What is it?
If you had additional service add in a shed, where you had a secondary thing.
Yeah.
So we want to make sure that that shed was under the residential rates and it wouldn't be considered like commercial or something like that. Again, clarification where you have the additional outbuildings for those.
Yeah, okay. Terrific, nice.
And we worked very hard on this with our team in the finance department and also at the customer service team. It's taken quite a bit of work to make sure that all of the day-to-day challenges the customer service team has in regards to applying the rates, that we address those to make their lives easier.
Right. I can only hope someday I have a shed with gas service in it. Yeah, I'm sure it does. It might be bigger than a shed, it might have a car lift in it, but nonetheless, we'll just call it a shed.
I want one of those too.
Yeah, nice. I don't, no, I do not have one of those, no. We retired that years ago, you know.
So with that, the appurtenance issue settled.
Yes.
We have to set the public hearing.
Actually, we have one more presentation,
Yep.
and that is on the economic development rate.
Oh, wait, I'm sorry.
This is the exciting part of.
This is
much more so than just you know, fixing a few edits on how many rates did we go through this year?
Well, let's see, the electric division has about 15 rates, we're changing 5. So, and the gas division, I think there are 5 edits out of 10. And water and sewer has no edits.
Okay, so now that I talk about economic development rates, Steve will have a presentation on that.
Okay, this is very exciting. This is something we've been talking about for a really long time, and that is an economic development rate to, you know, increase electric load and associated revenues, encourage new business in Norwich, which promotes job growth, and provide additional benefits to Norwich economy, because obviously if there's more people working in town, they're going out to restaurants and they're shopping at other local businesses, and obviously to increase property tax revenue to the city. Again, this isn't a be-all, end-all, but it's a tool in the toolbox that can be used both by our own team and like NCDC, for instance, to encourage businesses to come into town. This is being proposed for electric at this time, and the way it works is that it provides a discount to kilowatt hour usage, and it's over a 5-year period, with the highest discount in the first year, and it's reducing about 20% each year over a 5-year period. So it really, you know, it sort of brings it down to 0 discount, so you're not getting this large discount in the business, and all of a sudden you're left with nothing. So as your business grows, it should help you out. It would be applicable to large customers under rate class EP. Those are our largest electric customers. We have about 70 of them right now. They would have a minimum demand of 100 kVA and the minimum usage of 100,000 kilowatt hours per property. The way, if the rate is approved, the way it would work is that an application would be submitted by the customer, reviewed and approved by staff. We would subsequently execute a contract with them, and then, you know, the contract would cover the discount, minimum usage, because we wouldn't want a new business coming to town saying, I'm going to use all this and then not use it, but get the discount. So there'd be some stipulations in the contract itself. It'd be short, though. And I want to provide a few examples of small, medium, and large customers. These are small, medium, and large, extremely large customers. I want to point that out. So this is a small customer example. This would be a big box store, Walmart. So that would be a small EP customer in electric usage. As you can see, they use about 1.6 million kilowatt hours a year. With the discount, well, their utility revenue is about $211,000 per year. The discount would be about $33,000, or a 13.5% discount in the first year, which is considerable. That's over a 10% discount to a new business that would be coming to town. But they would also generate annual tax revenue of almost $400,000, and the city would get an additional payment from utility revenues of $21,000. So again, this discount creates additional revenue streams for the city, and it ends after 5 years. So it really, I can't say enough about it. Here's a medium customer example, 4.2 million kilowatt hours a year. This would be a large manufacturing company, right? Not our largest, but a very large. So annual utility revenues of about $520,000. 12.7% discount of $75,000, but again, $400,000 in tax revenue brought to the city on the annual basis, and $52,000 in our 10% payment to the city based on that utility bill. And this is just electric. Most of these customers are going to use gas, water, and sewer services as well. Not to mention the other economic benefits to the city that I talked about, where employees would be shopping in town and so on and so forth. This example here is a large customer, 21 million kilowatt hours a year. This would represent one of our largest customer. If, for instance, I can say it now, right? If Freeport, if another company came in and acquired that building and did the same type of thing, this is the type of thing that we could offer them. So utility revenues with the discount of $2.7 million, they'd have a savings of almost $400,000. And again, since this is a large manufacturer, their annual tax revenue to the city isn't as much, but their annual city payment makes up for it, that they would get through the 10% payment through the utility revenues. So this presentation was presented to the Finance and Audit Committee. That's why it says presented to the board on July 29th. We'd like you to set a public hearing for these rates at the August board meeting, after which it could be considered and voted on at the September board meeting. And if so, we'd like to make these rates effective for all bills rendered on November 1st, commensurate with all the other rate changes that will be happening at that time. In order to set a public hearing, we're going to have to publish these in the newspaper and do a public notice, both the economic development rate and the changes that Laura spoke about. So that's why we need a approval of the board to do that. Any questions?
A couple questions. How are you planning to get the word out on this incentive? I mean, both statewide and nationally, did you go national with it?
So, we're working very closely with Kevin Brown and NPDC, we work closely with the mayor. So when a company is interested in Norwich or coming into the region, there's a lot of places they find out about, coming to Norwich and what's available at the sites. And everyone will have this tool in the toolbox. When somebody comes in, there are meetings with all three agencies, and this is going to be the first thing we're going to talk about from a utility standpoint, is how we can give you a better rate to come in to the city of Norwich.
Will it be on the webpage?
Yes, absolutely.
And would it make sense if we do it for water and gas, or is it not possible?
Right now, with gas, it's not, gas is, let me put it this way. It's hard to set a rate for gas because it's competitive with other fuels, right? So we're better off doing a special contract like we've done already with our largest customer. The other thing is with gas rates, we don't have large customer gas rates. We only have commercial rates and residential rates. The next rate track that we do for 3 years after this one will include most likely small, medium, and large gas rates. At that time, it makes more sense to have an economic development rate for that largest rate class. But if we did it right now, it would be applicable to all commercial gas customers, which it's kind of, we're trying to attract large load with this discount.
Every customer comes into the city of Norwich is an electric customer. They're not all gas, water,
Yeah.
and sewer customers as well.
Good.
I have a question. What did you say the discount was? Did you say 10%?
It's a little higher than that for the first, it's between 12 and 13%.
Then it goes down each year?
Yes.
Okay, so there's something in here that, I mean, it's a great program, but this thing about if they don't use enough electricity, they don't get the discount, I don't know about that. I mean, we're not really losing any money. They're just not saving as much if they don't use it. If they move their business to Norwich, I mean, that's big. I mean, do we want to get nickel and dime with them? I mean, I don't like that.
It wouldn't be that as much as if they didn't use as much, they would fall off the EP rate and they would be in the next level down, and the discount wouldn't apply to that. Because if we were to apply this discount to an EC rate class, it would affect a much larger group of customers, and we'd be giving
That is
discount.
how you explained it. You didn't explain it that way. You only said that if they don't use as much as we thought, that they wouldn't get the discount. That's not what you're saying now. Now what you're saying is, if they're not in a certain rate structure, it doesn't matter what they said, they either got to get that rate structure or not to get the discount.
They have, yes, that is correct. But it's also a minimum use of $100,000, 100,000 kilowatt hours per property per year. A customer.
You got to make it clear then that I mean, there's a lot of small business, so you're only really trying to attract really large businesses.
Correct.
So, I mean, it's got to be in bold print that, you know, that this kind of applies to all usage within that category. Not whether what you told, we don't care what you told us. I mean, it doesn't matter what you told us.
I mean, just be clarified,
But they're not in that category.
a lot of times we have developers come in and they're gonna be huge, and then things change.
Yeah.
And so they don't, we have one right now that we're hoping will be large. We hope they'd be large by now, and then they're a couple of years behind, beyond the factors that are beyond their control and beyond our control. So I think what Steve's trying to say here is, you know, we just want to make sure that it applies when they brought the load that they promised, if that makes sense. Because sometimes in development it happens, sometimes it doesn't.
It doesn't matter what they promise, they're either in it or not in it. I wouldn't get into what they're promising, you question their integrity.
No, it's not about integrity, it's about what rate class they should be on. So,
Exactly, that's what I'm saying.
but you won't
You're
know.
talking about their promises. You shouldn't be talking about it.
I didn't say promise.
And to get into this rate class, the meter has to have this much consumption. If they're
I
less,
understand that.
yeah.
I totally understand that. I just don't understand your explanation and the way you're approaching it.
So,
You gotta tell people, look, we have a discounted rate, you know, for new businesses that you might benefit from if you use enough to qualify for this category. That's it, they don't have to promise anything.
Well,
they do, because if they're getting a discount and they don't meet that load and they fall out of that rate class, they gotta know they're not gonna get the discount anymore.
Yeah, but if they're not in that rate class, they're not getting the discount. In other words, when you do the bill, you're not gonna give them a discount if they're in a different class. So what's their promises got to do with it? It's a bad approach.
again, you're saying that you have to offer this to them before they actually turn on the switch. So they're in the plan, and then they open up their business for business.
Right.
So they're gonna promise to come in, and they're gonna meet this, and then for whatever reason
They
they
don't
don't.
have to promise anything, it's there for anybody that brings in a new business.
Well,
If your usage is X,
I think all
X number of kilowatt hours, you get a discount.
all Steve's saying is they come in and they sign up for this program. The business may not be here yet, so they're gonna say, okay, I'm gonna meet this, we say, okay, fine, so that's what the promise is.
Mhm.
I'm gonna meet this when I show up to turn my business on, it'll meet this, it may not. But we're not gonna honor it if they don't meet it, right?
Why, I don't understand that at all. You're not making any sense to me, well, I'm sorry. Like, if somebody's bringing a new business in town, that's great, you know? And look, you might get this additional benefit because we have a rate structure with a discount for new businesses that are doing it. You don't make a promise anything.
Okay, so you're saying, all right, don't sign up for the program, wait till the first bill shows up, and then we'll have a little red star on the top that says, oh, by the way, you qualify for this.
What program are you talking about? It's just there for everybody that brings in a new business. What program are you talking
But
about?
if you're trying to attract the business, they don't wanna wait till they get their first bill and then find out, oh my God, I qualify for a discount. We wanna announce it to them, and then they're gonna come in and say, I'm gonna come to your town,
I'm not saying we're keeping it a secret. I'm saying, you know, Norwich is open for business, Norwich Public Utilities is offering a discounted rate for new businesses if they have enough electric usage and, you know, to qualify. What's their promise got to do with it?
Mike,
They either have it or they don't.
if I could just give you just a tiny bit of, operational functionality that has to happen. They fill out the application and they tell us that they're going to be a large customer. We have to then go into the system and then allocate them to that rate. It doesn't automatically tell what rate they're on based on their volume. We have to put them in at that rate. And so their bill will generate at that rate. We will then evaluate their history to see if they're meeting the requirements. And then communicate to the customer, you haven't met the requirements of that rate, we're going to have to change your rate. So it's not that we have history.
So you aren't giving them the discounted rate up front?
We're going to give them that rate up front, put them in that program, put the discount on their bill, and then evaluate their consumption. If they do not meet the parameters of the EP rate, we will communicate with them, you haven't met the parameters of the EP rate, we have to change your rate class, therefore you will no longer be eligible for the bill.
Okay.
It's more of an operational problem.
Are you gonna change it, or are you gonna backfill them?
No, absolutely not. It would be, from here going forward, this is what it would be. And there'd be a lot of communication. A new
So in other words,
customer-
they're gonna get the discounted rate, you know, for a trial period, even if they don't make that, and what's the trial period?
Jeff, our rate coverage
6 months, I believe.
is at 90 days, 6 months.
6 months, yeah.
And you would
And
also.
then there's a 3-month
Okay,
notice.
so that's different. You didn't say anything about a trial period, and then looking back.
This is actually an existing
So
process.
I didn't know that.
And then as part of that, they had 3 months, once we've identified it, to communicate so they can prepare for the change. This is any customer,
I
doesn't.
wouldn't get into a problem, so I'd say an estimate. You know,
Well, that's, I mean, that's kind of a semantic question. I mean, what we're really talking about, what is their expectation when they come here?
Yeah.
Not what their promise is. I mean, I don't have to swear on
I
that.
can't promise it, but that's the word that you guys are using, is promise.
But Mike, I give you an example where we've had a couple of companies that have looked in Norwich, manufacturers in other communities. They start off by using the Norwich space as a warehouse. They plan on moving all their manufacturer equipment here, and for whatever reason, they don't. Small usage, they get taken off the rate. They move that manufacturer equipment here, big usage, they keep it. But their plan was to move all their inventory first, then move their equipment. They don't move their equipment, they get taken off the rate. We get the big customer in, they get the rate. And
So when you give them the rate, what date do you give them?
Day one.
Even though they haven't moved their equipment in yet?
Right. But if they don't fulfill their obligation, they get taken off the rate.
But, and this is, and I understand what you're saying, Mike. I think, you know, for companies larger this size, I think that they will have a sample size of their current utilities previously and what they paid, so that we can kind of screen them a little bit. Maybe that could be a requirement. Can you show me your last 3 electrical history? Because a company of that magnitude has to know how many kilowatts or kilowatt per year or whatever.
Correct.
That's common.
Correct?
Yeah.
So with that, I totally understand what you're saying. But I guess I have a question as well, too. Is there any other towns in Connecticut that we are modeling after? Or is this something new that we've tried, on our end here in southeastern Connecticut?
Yeah, I don't know, I don't know of any other towns in Connecticut that are in with our size. I know that Eversource had an economic discount rate at one point, at one time, and I know that other systems throughout the United States uses similar types of things, yeah. Yep.
There also are companies and municipalities that use CMAC as a direct supplier of power. I think General Dynamics and Pfizer, for example, directly use CMAC power and CMAC rates. And so that's another fact.
Oh, absolutely.
That was our
I'm assuming.
That's the only way a data center would work, is with a special contract through CMS. And that is taken in, not in the rate, but that is buying on the market with a margin above the market. Take the risk out of us.
Yeah, a company the size of the subbase, for instance, would not be an e-cut, it would be a special contract.
And I'm assuming this is a tool that we're gonna use for, you know, NCDC to be able to use to go out and say, this is our bargaining chip.
Absolutely.
I guess, my question is, how will we effectively market that? You know, what's the strategy for that part? I think it's great, but I just think, you know, how do we use that to go nationwide? Because I'm assuming that since we're gonna be unique and we have a niche, or statewide, I should say, you know, what's gonna be our niche to be able to market that to different companies? I think, you don't have to answer that now, but I think it's more of a rhetorical question.
Yeah.
Later on.
I did have a conversation with Kevin Brown at AT&T, and said, here's something we're going to be posting to the board, I don't know if the board is going to receive this or not, but this is a great tool for attracting businesses, and we need to work together to attract. You know, NCDC also has some, you know, lease reduction programs and some other things that they are bringing in for the city, and also, if it's an opportunity zone, an enterprise zone, the city has tax abatement, you know, incentives as well. You got to put the whole package together, and it has to be marketed in the whole package to bring in the best and biggest.
And that's essentially TD's.
NCDP, and the mayor who's in charge of that.
And the mayor, yes.
Don't forget the mayor.
Absolutely.
I like the program, I'm not questioning the validity of the program or the value of it, I think it's a great idea, but I just don't think, you know, if you say promise, and then we don't deliver, that means, what is it, lie to us or something? I think they estimate, they're gonna, good faith estimate.
But we don't want someone getting a discount to put a warehouse here when that's what they intended to do, but they say that they're gonna do all this manufacturing and have huge utility bills either. So they gotta sign up to do that. And,
Yeah, I
you know,
understand that, but what are they saying when they sign up? Are they saying, I'm betting my reputation on this, or this is based on my best business estimate?
No,
Plans change.
They're just making a
Plans
statement.
Plans change.
And we have, and the rate changes if you can't meet the expectations. We're not calling you a liar, we don't
Right.
have to lie,
Plan-
your financing fell through to move the equipment over here.
Yeah.
But you had enough money to pay for the warehouse. All right, we got a warehouse. Warehouse is better than nothing. It doesn't deserve this special rate.
That's what I'm saying, they can't promise, because there's too many variables. They can make a good faith estimate.
Good pay that, yeah.
Right, what we do is we have a developers agreement, so as soon as NCDC or the city brings us a lead, then an MDU employee or employees are involved, we have a developers agreement that lays all of this stuff out. This will become a component of that. So this is kind of like a WEO type thing, and so that everybody's on the same page going in as to what's available and what's over. There's infrastructure components to that as well. So the size of the transformer, the size of the wires, the size of the gas line, the size of the water main, sewer, you name it, all depends on the intended use. So totally understand plans change, but we do try to get as much information as we can to invest our money, because a lot of times we supply that transformer or we supply that gas pipe based on an anticipated load, and we'd like at least a good faith, obligation, maybe is too strong a term, but, response from that entity that, hey, yeah, okay, you put tens of thousands of dollars in, we're gonna come within our capability.
Okay. So somebody's not done with a 10-year agreement, and they want a transformer this big in 10 years. We will probably put a tab big enough for that 10-year transformer, but it doesn't always happen. So we're gonna get the most cost-effective transformer and infrastructure, and we'll upgrade it in 2 years as they grow. But if you start off with what, what they wish or what they want, it's a waste of all of our resources. Same kind of thing, right?
Sure.
All right, so I think we pretty much settled that. We don't wanna make any promises, but we want to look at what their expectations are, have the ability to make changes if they don't, meet that statement. Yeah.
No, I just think,
Go ahead.
I just think it would be good to get out, statewide and internationally with the program, whether it's the CBIA or the EPA or somebody, early on to attract people that may not even thinking of coming to Norwich, but if that's thrown in, then might be a plus right up front. But by the way, part of a good faith estimate would be looking at some past usages, like Sean just said, I look at it that way. They would like, a good faith estimate, and, can you show us what your existing usage looks like? And then that's worth a hell of a lot more than empty promise.
That's standard practice for us.
Yes, okay, good.
Okay, so the actual action item here is to set a public hearing on all three of these rates or rate policies for August 31st of 2021. And I would entertain a motion to set that date.
I'll make that work.
Thank you, Bill. We have a second.
I'll second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Unanimous, we set the date for August 31st. The next item on the agenda is strategic plan discussion. Maybe I'll just start with this. We talked about at the last meeting whether we should update our strategic plan, which is a couple of years old, and in particular, should we go out and hire either a facilitator, like the woman who did the strategic plan 2 years ago, or the fellow who did the CMAC and Groton strategic plans and so forth. I had a couple of conversations with Mike about it, and he basically persuaded me, and I'll open the floor on this, but he basically persuaded me that we probably don't need a completely new strategic plan, and probably don't need to go out and hire a facilitator for tens of thousands of dollars. agenda consists of me. Work on implementation or potential implementation of the first item in our existing strategic plan, which is economic development or NPU, either or both on an operational basis and sort of an entrepreneurial basis. And perhaps get some assistance from a fellow who can do financial projections so that we can look at potential costs and so forth and so on, and then come back with a plan to either do something, or if it doesn't make sense, not do it at all. It would be a lot cheaper. It wouldn't require the entire board's, time on an offsite or something. And, I think that would make some more sense. But what do you folks think?
I thank you for listening to me, hearing me out on it, and I think that the facilitator was good, what we did before, but they're just taking our information and, consolidating it and tweaking what we've got, and wordsmithing things at this point. We pretty much know what we're about. I think, without trying to sound like bragging or anything, we've done a lot of good things in the last 5 years. We've improved your reputation, and you returned to profitability. Management did a brilliant job surviving COVID crisis. All the good pieces are in place. We're on the same team. Doesn't seem any visible strife that I can see. We're all trying to do our best for the city. But what I'd like to know, I'm not an expert in economic development, but, what initiatives, should a utility like us be taking to try to, either improve efficiencies or improve service to the community or, other forms of economic development. And I thought, if the committee could kick that around and, maybe find an expert that could come in and talk to us, about substantial things and, knowledge that we don't have and experience, provide experience that we don't have. I mean, Chris is doing a phenomenal job, in my opinion. I'm not trying to say anything to the contrary or comments here at all. He's done a fantastic job, but, you can't be an expert in everything. Maybe there's people out there that can come in and give us a project that's worthwhile, some sort of economic development. Something maybe it's right here and we're not seeing it. I don't know. I have no idea what it would be.
I mean, there are a whole host of things from, dramatically expanding our car charging stations to, preparing to service the Norwich Hospital, Beacon Drive development, to, looking at the potential to acquire franchises adjacent to Norwich, a whole bunch of things. So, and that's not an exhaustive list.
Opportunities.
Yeah.
I don't know what they are. I see the first thing that I have a data. That's about it.
Chris? Yeah, one thing, regardless of whether the board comes out on this, the staff does need to do a SWOT analysis, risk analysis of our core business, right? We do need to make sure that we're modifying things in the strategic plan to keep core business up and running. If we look where we were 3+ years ago when this was done, almost 4 years ago when this was put together, I was just throwing out there. Cybersecurity is much more critical now than it was when we did the last strategic plan. There are other things that we need to do to make sure that we are capturing and managing the risk of running a 4-business utility. So if the board says, hey, we want to talk more about economic development, happy to bring in consultants, happy to re-energize the economic development committee. But the staff does need to go through that exercise to make sure we're covering all our risks. If I look at, we don't have Barry Ellison here, he's right, he is on there. But we have new regulations for gas safety. We need to make sure that our strategic plan covers those. If I look at Eric on the electric system, he's going to say, geez, we want to make sure we're capturing a connection between all of our substations so we can add more distributed generation onto our system.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
4 or 5 years ago when we did this, here was the board doing their own. And here was, the management team and the employees and leadership who were doing theirs. But it was the same program. Basically, they asked us the same questions. We didn't even know anything about it. I mean, we're not experts in the workings of this, the workings of this NPU, right? We're just looking at overall policy and initiatives and, stewardship and things like that. But we don't know an electron from a freaking micron, when you get right down to it. We don't know how to string a wire. We don't know how to, prepare, protect the computer from getting hacked and all that stuff. So I felt like we wasted a lot of our time on stuff we didn't know about. But you guys do a lot of good things with your area because you did know what we were talking about. So I felt, when I was talking to Bob, that this time we shouldn't have to go and do the same thing. But I think we would like to be brief or get the overview of the results of what you guys do.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I'm not against, at all, what you're saying. I just want to clarify that.
Yeah.
If you need a facilitator for that, God bless, go ahead. I mean, I'm all for it.
Yeah.
I just don't want to do all that at our level when we're not really even involved.
No, the board would need policy and vision, right? And staff has to educate the board of what we need for the day-to-day operation. But if the board wants to do additional economic development, we've got to take that into consideration. And it's a balancing act. We only have so many resources and so many people to do this work. And the resources are not defined by the number of people, they're also defined by what our rate base can afford, right? You can ask anybody in the operations side, we'd love to have all the infrastructure everywhere, but we're still going to be operating 1880 water mains that were put in, when the, industrial revolution started happening around here. They were put in by the mill, and we maintain and operate those. Everybody would love to run with brand new pipe and brand new facilities everywhere. It's a balancing act. So I think what we have to do is staff needs to go through these exercises, come up with our risk. The board needs to look at vision, where we want to do economic development, and then we have to marry the two. And maybe you don't have to get into the weeds.
Yes.
But
I mean, you want to stay out of the weeds.
yes,
Good way to put it.
and I don't see a lot of value in, wordsmithing, mission, vision, value. If somebody has an issue we should bring down, that's fine, but I don't think that's really where we're gonna start. But we do have to do that risk analysis.
Sure.
Kind of define where we need to go in the next 3 years.
I'm totally on the same page.
And we need the board telling us where we need to go in 3 years for economic development and what we're gonna investigate and projects we can bring in.
I'm totally on board with that. Thank you.
All right, well, let me do this. I will talk to some of you and have an interest in serving on the economic development committee and some other thoughts and present it to the next meeting, and we can discuss it and make a decision.
It has to be only 2 people on the committee based on the 5-person.
Yeah, actually, that's not the case.
Oh, it's not? Okay.
Well, I mean, technically, the committees are public entities too, and you have to notice for the committees that they're public and, clarity on the committee meetings as well.
So you'll have to go through those extra steps to get.
I think, isn't that right?
Well, they're both meetings, whether we have 2 or whether we have 5.
Yeah.
But if there are things that are.
Is it a workshop? You still have to do it.
We have to know it's a workshop as well. But if there are things that are proprietary as far as impacting rates and competitiveness, that can be done in executive sessions. But if they're all public meetings.
Having said that, you mentioned executive session, that's the next item on the agenda.
I did look at both the strategic plans and I really like one strategic plan, the format, the layout, the different
statement and core values. And I think if we beef it up, if we improve the economic development portion, I think the way it is laid out is good. Better.
Interaction with the same person that the CMAC and Rock.
What was the thing?
Yeah. All right, so anyway, the next item on the agenda is executive session. And I take my graph here and do the long paragraph. We would like to go into executive session to discuss confidential, trade secret, and commercially valuable confidential or proprietary information not subject to inspection or public disclosure pursuant to section 1, 2, and 5, and 7, 232A of the Connecticut General Statutes. This information is commercially valuable, confidential, and proprietary, and is not for public disclosure pursuant to Act number 98-212. Do we have a motion to go into executive session?
One second. Were we supposed to do anything with the pension obligation?
We already did that.
We had to do that in front of the meeting.
Okay.
I'll give you a motion to go.
All right, we have a second. All those in favor of going into executive session? It is unanimous. We're in executive session.
That complements the other programs you mentioned. Very much. Great night.
Thank you, sir.